Greetings of the day to all fellow viewers. Today we are going to have a discussion on Jibanananda Das's poem I Shall Return to This Bengal and its significance in Partition literature. Jibanananda Das was born in the year 1899 in Borishal, which now belongs to the present Bangladesh, and he died in a tram accident in the year 1954 at the age of 55 here in Kolkata, which belongs to India after our independence in 1947. So, he was a man born in undivided Bengal and died in the divided one. The poem we are going to discuss is from the collection of his poems called Ruposhi Bangla or Beautiful Bengal, which was published posthumously in 1957. As its name suggests, all the poems of the collection are about the beauty of Bengal. Jibanananda's perception and portrayal of the mundane, everyday, ordinary objects of nature are extraordinary. His imagination is rooted in the regional nature of Bengal. But what makes him special? Of course, Bengal has been endowed with a great many number of nature poets, including the greatest of all, Rabindranath Tagore. But the way Jibanananda presents the so-called lowly and unattractive objects of nature cannot be found in any other great poet of Bengal. In Jibanananda's poem, we find the natural inhabitants of the regional nature of Bengal, like the Indian myna, the fishing kite, the dawn crow, the duck, the glassfly, the barn owl, the white egrets, etc. The little known rivers such as Dhanshiri or Rupsha or Jalangi are mentioned instead of the famously known ones such as the Ganga or the Padma. Ordinary natural scenes that may seem so insignificant and simple to us are portrayed by Jibanananda because, as ordinary as they may look, they are the very essence of the beauty of the region called Bengal. They are unobserved by us in general, but their presence is quintessential to delineate the difference between Bengal and other regions in terms of natural beauty. The shade of the jackfruit tree, the autumn harvest land, the colmi-scented waters of the ponds, the rivers, the fields, the crops, the waves of the little known small regional rivers, the insects, the fly in the evening, along with the evening breeze, the shrill sound of an owl from the top of a silk cotton tree, the child playing with rice grains on the grass of his front yard, the adventurous boy steering a small dinghy with a torn white sail and the white egrets flying home against the background of red clouds just before the sunset. All these are quintessential to the natural beauty of Bengal, despite their so-called ordinariness. Now, I know all of you have the translated version in your syllabus. You are going to read it, of course. But as a fellow Bengali, I want to read the original Bengali version in front of you so that I can set the mood before analyzing it. আবার আসিব ফিরে ধানসিঁড়িটির তীরে এই বাংলায়, হয়তো মানুষ নয়, হয়তো বা শঙ্খচিল শালিকের বেশে, হয়তো ভোরের কাক হয়ে এই কার্তিকের নবান্নের দেশে কুয়াশার বুকে ভেসে একদিন আসিব এ কাঁঠাল ছায়ায়, হয়তো বা হাঁস হব কিশোরীর ঘুঙুর রহিবে লাল পায়, সারাদিন কেটে যাবে কলমির গন্ধ ভরা জলে ভেসে ভেসে। আবার আসিব আমি বাংলার নদী মাঠ ক্ষেত ভালোবেসে, জলাঙ্গির ঢেউয়ে ভেজা বাংলার এই সবুজ করুণ ডাঙায়, হয়তো দেখিবে চেয়ে সুদর্শন উড়িতেছে সন্ধ্যার বাতাসে, হয়তো শুনিবে এক লক্ষ্মী পেঁচা ডাকিতেছে শিমুলের ডালে, হয়তো খইয়ের ধান ছড়াতেছে শিশু এক উঠানের ঘাসে, রূপসার ঘোলা জলে হয়তো কিশোর এক সাদা ছেঁড়া পালে ডিঙা বায়, রাঙা মেঘ সাঁতরায়ে অন্ধকারে আসিতেছে নেড়ে, দেখিবে ধবল বক, আমারই পাবে তুমি ইহাদের ভিড়ে. Now that was the original Bengali version. Anyway, the beauty of this poem is not only restrained within the poet's portrayal of nature. Although apparently a glorification of nature is there, Jibanananda is actually writing with a very sad tone. He is thinking about death and returning to Bengal after death. Death is not mentioned explicitly, but it is implied in the subject of returning. That is, returning after death. Jibanananda was a very sad and lonely kind of a poet. In this poem, he is glorifying the beauty of nature while actually thinking of death. Death is imminent for all of us, but we don't know what it actually is. The poet is not analyzing death. He is not analyzing the idea of death from either concrete or abstract perspective. Yet, he is just assuming that he just cannot leave the nature that his beloved Bengal has even after his death. He cannot leave it. He loves it so much that he cannot leave it. He cannot think about leaving it. He says that he will be living in those neglected, ordinary, simplistic, mundane, everyday objects of the nature of Bengal. Remember that throughout his life, he was a lonely, neglected, simplistic man who neither got fame nor wanted it. So naturally, his choices of returning to Bengal as ordinarily as possible is also not much astonishing. He is as a poet quintessential to Bengali literature. Yet he is unobserved, neglected, and looks as if ordinary. Similar points may be said about these objects of nature that he is portraying in his poem. These objects, even as they look ordinary, are the very essence in our concept of the beauty of Bengal's nature. So, the poem is elegiac in its tone, and it glorifies the ordinary beauties of nature in an extraordinary way at the same moment. It is a poem concerning death, and at the same time, it is a poem that declares the poet's love for his native landscape while saying vehemently that even after death he cannot depart from this land, but he will return to this beautiful native land of his again and again, even after death, in the most ordinary forms that exist in nature. So as you can see, it is included in your partition literature paper. Now, where is the topic of partition here in this poem, you may ask? The thing is, Jibanananda was born in undivided Bengal. Bengal was divided in 1947 with the independence of India. Now the point is, Jibanananda lived till 1954 and these poems were published in 1957. So he was well aware before his death of the partition of Bengal. Then why isn't he writing about or even pointing out the partition, the division of Bengal? No, that's the point. The poem completely ignores the political map. It doesn't care what the political map says. The poem says about the nature of Bengal, which cannot be divided. The nature of Bengal cannot be divided, and it can be ignored. The partition can be ignored. Nature ignores partition. Nature doesn't care what you call east or what you call west. Nature defines us in her own way. That is why it is included in your syllabus, in your partition literature paper. Not because Jibanananda was unaware of partition. Jibanananda was aware of it, and Jibanananda doesn't care to portray a divided Bengal. He completely ignores. How? He doesn't deny partition. He just portrays the nature of Bengal that is always unified as a whole. It cannot be divided. You cannot divide the natural beauty of Bengal by borders. You cannot divide the soul of Bengal by borders. The culture, the nature, the human soul, and the natural soul, it remains intact. That is his point. That is why he is ignoring the topic of partition. He is just focusing on nature. So although the poet has not talked about partition, the poem is included in partition literature paper, or it is an important specimen of partition literature because the poet was aware of partition and he ignored the topic. He ignored completely the division that broke the hearts of his fellow Bengali people. He ignored it consciously and he portrayed the nature of Bengal, which can never be divided, which is always unified, which represents Bengal. If you can look at a picture from today's Bangladesh, the natural picture of today's Bangladesh, and if you look at a natural picture of today's West Bengal, can you differentiate? No. The trees are the same, the birds are the same, the landscape is almost identical. So you can say this belongs to my Bengal, but you are not sure which side of the border it belongs to. By consciously ignoring the topic of partition, Jibanananda makes it a significant specimen of partition literature. I think I have made my points very clear and understandable to you. If you have got any help from this video, if you were benefited by this video, then please like, share, subscribe, and thank you. See you soon.